All right, maybe some small intro. We only have 25 minutes, which is either long or short, depending on, I think, some of the questions you might have. But as an introduction, my name is Nick. I've been working at GitLab for the last 2 years. I don't know, I would assume all of you know GitLab. If you've used Drupal.org, there's also some GitLab there. My role at GitLab is I'm a director of contributor success. It's actually quite a fancy title for something of a lot of detail, but it means that I'm responsible for doing events and other activities to attract contributors to GitLab. GitLab is an open source, or I should correct myself, an open core software system, which means that there is a piece open source, and then there's a piece that you need a license for. But all of the code is open. You can contribute to both places. One is MIT licensed, and the other one is GitLab specific license. So my role is to make sure I can attract people there, but also the journey of once you start to contribute to that thing, the thing I call GitLab, it should be a pleasant experience. And maybe to do like a blast from the past, when you started contributing to Drupal, if you've done that, it's quite a big hurdle to take because there's a lot of stuff you need to figure out, an account, blah, blah, blah. And we did a user study with first-time contributors of GitLab. And we have this thing called GitLab Development Kit. It's the thing you need to install to get stuff running. And some of these people needed more than 6 hours just to get the tooling installed locally. Some of them just threw their computer out of the window. In terms of a journey of like how nice it is to contribute to GitLab, that was a challenge. I'm happy to talk about GitLab. I'm also happy to talk about Drupal if you'd like. I've spent, I think, the last 15 years or maybe longer in the Drupal world, and I'm still involved as a member of the board of the Drupal Association. As mentioned in the keynote, I flew last week to Portland as GitLab, but I'm also as GitLab in the board of the Drupal Association. So any of that stuff you'd like to ask, I'm happy to answer. And maybe with that, I'll open the room. If you would have any questions, even if it's technical, it's fine. So if it's like, oh, I hate this CI/CD thing, I'm not sure if I will be able to answer it. But I've seen a lot of things in the last 2 years. Anyone that wants to start? This is an AMA, so that's also how it works. Everything is super clear. GitLab, the fox. Right. It's not a fox. Do you know that the logo of GitLab? Do you know what it is? It looks like a fox, right? But it's not a fox. So what would it be? It's not a red panda. It's called in Japanese, it's a tanuki, or in English, it's called a Japanese raccoon dog. And actually, it's true. Like if you type in Stable Diffusion, generate a Japanese raccoon dog, it really looks like the logo. If you type in a fox, it's a very different beast. So that's what it is. And maybe good to know, GitLab was founded by 2 people, one person from the Netherlands and one person from Ukraine. And currently, it's based in nowhere because there's no offices. We're over 1,800 team members. We call team members, not employees, everywhere. I think over 60 plus countries without any office. So even if you have any questions about working asynchronously and remotely, completely, I can tell you a couple of things if you'd like. If you can speak in the microphone, then it's also visible in the recording.
Do you get together regularly?
Regularly, obviously, because there was COVID, the company didn't really get together. But in mid-March, we all got together in Las Vegas for the first time. So everyone flew in to Vegas in one of these casinos, which was quite nice. But we also have more local get-togethers. Sometimes go to London. Last week, I was also in Hamburg with some people from the field marketing of GitLab. So I do see the team members once in a while. I also have a team myself, and only in Vegas I was able to really see like the last person I didn't meet yet in 2 years. You can throw the thing there. Oh, I think in the back, or
Okay.
yeah, you can do first.
This is maybe a bit detailed question, but
That's okay.
I use GitLab for CI, and if you want to, I test stuff using Cypress end-to-end testing. So I spin up a container doing Cypress, but I also need PHP and a database. So all those are added as secondary services, and the services, the web server starts complaining, I don't have a database, and Cypress, and they keep on trying and complaining for quite a while before everything has booted up. And I always wonder, is this the best way to do it? Because it looks like a lot of complaints in my log before it comes out green. Oh, the document root is not available. No, because you didn't do a checkout yet. Stuff like that. Is there any tips you can give me on that?
I think it all depends on the container image that you use and how much of that you own. So the more you can prepare in advance, the easier it's going to be to boot it up. For example, if you make the image yourself with the repository already in it, but you just need to do a git pull of the last, say, 2 days, it's going to be a lot faster than doing a full checkout and starting up a web server and whatnot. So maybe that's something to look into. Like, what's your starting point?
Yeah, that's definitely. I'm very lazy, so I've only used public images and have to
Right.
add in all the stuff I need.
And maybe one thing there that you could use, like GitLab CI has templates, which is one thing, and that's also what Drupal.org uses to like do the whole testing thing. But a couple months ago, GitLab released CI/CD components, which basically is a catalog of things that people share, but you can also use it on your own to have all that pre-made stuff ready, where you say, oh, I need PHP, I need MySQL, and etc. And it's opinionated either on a global scale or on your personal scale.
All right.
But it has a catalog, so you can browse through it and maybe find the thing that you want.
Sounds good.
Yeah. There was another one in the back.
So Drupal.org is using GitLab, as a switch to GitLab for its internal processes and development process and such. Can you kind of give a high-level overview of some of the stuff that's been happening lately and some of the stuff that's coming in terms of like tooling and deployment processes or whatever you guys have?
On Drupal.org, you mean?
Yes, specifically on the Drupal
so
contribute.
Initially, I think, I don't know when the migration started, but probably 3 years ago-ish, something along that line. All of the repositories were migrated from a local Git server that was managed by the DA. And you have to know, like, the Drupal Association is a team of 15 people-ish, where 4 or 5 engineers. So these 4 or 5 engineers are responsible for the infrastructure of Drupal.org, the updates of all these servers, the updates of Drupal.org, the website itself. Hence, it's still Drupal 7 on some of these cases. And they're responsible to follow whatever the community is doing, the whole Symfony thing, composer updates, now a project browser, automatic updates. It's all these same 5 people. I want you to put that somewhere in your head. That's there. So that's also why the Git migration or the GitLab migration is taking a long time. It started with the repositories moving in, so that you just had to update the repo URL. And then the Drupal community did something strange, in my opinion. We said, and I'm speaking as we because I'm as guilty as anyone else, we know better. So we said we have this weird workflow or normal workflow, and we don't want to use forks that are independent from like you as a person. No, you want to use communal forks. So for every issue that we have on Drupal.org, we create a separate fork. So think about the 4 people and think about this special snowflake that is kind of prohibiting a little bit of that migration speed towards how to get to a standardized workflow. There's nothing wrong per se with it, but that's also why it took or it takes a long time. But it does allow you to create an issue on Drupal.org, and then it says create the issue fork. And it creates magical things with the API of GitLab. And everyone that wants to can get access to that fork. And then you can work together on all kinds of branches within that fork of that specific issue of that project. Is that a good idea? I don't know. But it creates a lot of extra overhead because it's the only project, and I'm also responsible or we're working with the team at GitLab of all the other open source projects, GNOME, KDE, a couple of others. Drupal is the only one doing it this way. Yeah, you say it's good. I would say it's a challenge. Because if there's only one customer asking something, it will never be prioritized by GitLab itself to make it a native experience. And then it's a good question whether that's worth the effort, or should Drupal kind of get off that island and work the way that GitHub and other like GitLab projects work. There's disadvantages, I'm very aware, but that's part of where we are now, and that works. So the next step that is happening in Drupal.org is moving the issue queue. So all of the issues, the script is ready from what I understood last week, to actually make the move for all the content of all the issues into GitLab. And that would allow the Drupal.org team to not maintain their own little issue queue tracker. It comes with challenges again, because it doesn't support patch workflows. It's still, I think, a war between some to use patches and forks and all of these things. But that's a bit where they are. Maybe you've seen it, but the Drupal test bot or the test infrastructure was migrated into GitLab CI. And as far as I know, it used to take, maybe some people you know it better, but more than an hour for Drupal core testing, and now it takes 6 minutes. Yeah, 10. So there was a notable improvement on just parallelizing all of these. That's not parallelizing as in stopping it, but parallelizing, like scaling. Or so. It's paralyzed. This is very meta. Yeah. Yes. So, but that's a bit where we are now. So I think if the issues can move, that's a great step. And then hopefully Drupal.org can also like upgrade to Drupal 10 or even 11 at some point, and give that engineering team a bit of space to focus on the things that really matter for Drupal, which I believe is project browser, automatic updates, making sure that you're live as a developer is a lot easier, and not work on the special snowflake that is something that the Drupal world invented in GitLab. My opinion. Yeah, so hopefully that answers a little bit of your question. Yeah. Again, everything I say is my opinion, so I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not in behalf of the DA. So.
Yeah, we can have a discussion about that.
Yes. So.
No, but what I want to come back to is the patch workflow.
Yes.
So right now, GitLab isn't supporting. So you can make a patch if you just do .patch.
Try to speak really into the
the microphone. If you do .patch or .div, you can get a div, but that's a live div.
Correct.
So you don't want to use that in your patch workflow. So currently, GitLab's not supporting like where you can get a pointer to a specific one. So now you still have to download a patch and add it to your project. I know it's been talked about, but do you know what the status of that is? So you can just
I know the issue is open. So what you're talking about is that indeed when you take a link of a certain patch or a certain MR, it's really hard to put or get a patch from a point in time of that MR. So I want the third commit out of the 10. I want that specific change. You can actually get that specific commit, but you actually want from 0 to 3, the summary of those 3. That issue is open on gitlab.org. I don't know the state of it, but Drupal is not the only one asking it. So in a way, it's not uncommon to ask. What we do there, and this is a tricky part, the businesses that use GitLab don't have that need. So it really is the open source community that basically has to step up, and I'm happy to facilitate that, to make that small change necessary, because it's actually not complicated, but someone has to do it, and the business need is not there. But my team can help, like give you guidance. And for example, the team that I have, it's called Contributor Success. We have weekly pairing sessions on Discord. So you basically just jump in, and there's an engineer ready to help you whatever you want to solve for the whole hour. And I think it's now scheduled for 3 or 4 weeks in advance. So people really take us up on it. It's like live coding, and we also stream it, and people watch it. It's really down to earth, fixing these kind of things. So if you're interested, join one of these pairing sessions, and maybe someone else can actually solve it for you, but you actually get the attention together with them, as long as you are committed to also learn how to do it.
Yeah, to me, it's just it's a security issue that needs to be fixed, because people are doing these pointers to .diff files, and they'll just commit or pull anything into their repositories without realizing that it's somebody can change that MR because of the system that Drupal uses. You can get anything into that merge request.
In a way, it's a security issue to use patches that you don't control. I don't think the functionality is a security issue, but putting a live URL of Drupal.org in your composer file is not the smartest thing.
No, but not a lot of people realize that is what happens. They think I get my .diff file and I'm safe. I'm getting the same thing.
But it might be actually something for in the Drupal composer file or something along that line to warn people, like, oh, do you really own these URLs of these patches? This is not a file that's in your repo. I don't know how you would manage it, but I think that with security, it's always a tricky thing. Like who's responsible to to say, like, don't do this. If you want to do it, by all means, fine. But good discussion. Any other questions that you might have?
Hi. Can you hear me? Is that thing? On GitHub, when you do a merge request, a pull request, the comments on there, I've got a nice little kind of like drop down to convert a comment to an issue. On GitLab, I don't think it does that.
It's a good question.
Is that something that might be in the pipeline, or if not, how do we get it in the?
Have you looked in the issue queue?
It's really long. I haven't. No, I haven't. I'm afraid.
I don't know. It's a good question. I've not heard of that need.
Because when there's a long discussion around a pull request, and like lots of things come up, sometimes they are not relevant to that pull request directly.
Correct.
They're kind of bad, and it's like, let's just create another issue for that, and let's get this one done. So it's a really neat little feature that speeds up discussion. Just speeds up kind of pushing away. Let's create an issue for that, and we'll come back to it later, and then crack on with the merge request. But it just takes a little bit more copy pasting in GitLab, which is slightly annoying.
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer, but in GitLab there's something called quick actions, so you can do like dash. And then assign or dash something. It could be that already exists. If you take the same question to Drupal.org, it will not work because the issues are not managed in GitLab.
That's another question. When are the issues on Drupal.org going to be managed in GitLab issue queues?
They were ready to migrate before DrupalCon Portland, but they deemed it too risky. So probably in the next couple of weeks, I would believe. At least they're ready. So yes.
There's a deadline I saw pass by for country projects to move to GitLab CI, and I think they were planning to do it right after, because if you're not, like when you're in GitLab CI, they could do all the migrations in one go. I thought I read that somewhere.
Sure. I think you're correct, and it's also necessary because the website has to be updated and upgraded. So anytime now, as long as Starshot doesn't require more resources of that 4 or 5 people team.
Yep. Migrating projects from GitHub into Drupal.org. One of the reasons, so with local gov Drupal distribution, we've got most of our projects, maybe 70 odd repositories on GitHub. we want to come back to Drupal.org, especially because there's all the GitLab goodness in there now. So there's no reason really to be, separate, and there's many more reasons to be in the community. Is there anything to help migrate issues? I mean, the repositories are straightforward enough, really, but it's the issue queues and the history of the conversations and all of that kind of stuff. Is there any way of migrating that into Drupal.org issue queues and
Yeah, it's probably
repos?
twofold, that question. Yes, there is tooling available to import a whole GitHub repository into GitLab, so almost like one-on-one. Maybe with the exception of the CI/CD testing, because that's quite specific to the platform. For Drupal.org, it would require the GitLab instance of Drupal.org to give more permissions to users and create projects and all of that. I don't know what the status is of that, but the governance model of that is also a bit tricky. If you suddenly allow everyone to create projects ad hoc without a certain structure or without any kind of governance that is really about Drupal, you have to have staff that really removes crypto miners and all of that stuff as soon as possible. And that requires people. So I think that's kind of a trade-off that they will have to make. But the tooling is there.
Interesting. Thank you.
Would anyone ever consider contributing to GitLab? What would be the blocking factor? Time as always. We did an inspiration from Pittsburgh. Do you know Pittsburgh? So I found that very inspiring. Maybe the amount of people that signed up for Pittsburgh was not that much, but in GitLab, I did a GitLab innovation contest or competition with the same premise of, if it's really good, we can further fund you. And there was money there on the table if that would actually help with the time constraint. We had about 1,000 participants, which was really nice. Some people did ecological things like how many trees should we actually plant based on your consumption of CI/CD. A couple of those ideas. But if time is really the problem, maybe funding can help. All right, I think we're out of time. Hopefully it was useful. I know it was short, but happy to answer any other question you might have. Thanks.